Welcome back to Cityline. With me, I have somebody who I could spend hours, if not months, years, sitting on a park bench talking about everything in this world. And I'm talking about Maralise Hood Quan, who is the Executive Director for the Center for Dialog and Resolution. Welcome back, my dear.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Everyone appreciates what you're doing with Cityline and connecting our community. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, you're more than welcome. So I watch, and you know this, Refresh Fridays. I love them. And you talk, it seems like there's always a golden nugget about how do we keep our human connection connected during these times of isolation, COVID, Black Lives Matter. There's so many things. I saw you take a deep breath. That we are taking deep breaths on. So how do we stay connected? How do we keep that human connection going?
It is so important that we do not isolate humans, even though we have to physically not be next to each other because that's how we get the virus. And it's interesting you mentioned Refresh Friday. That has been a huge part of my personal learning and overcoming my fear, which probably being with you on Cityline got me over the fear factor immediately, is how do we look back on the week and think about how do we fill our cup again to have the energy to engage? And the center has been working really hard to be able to make sure that even on Zoom, we are listening and we are connecting. And that listen is something that you're doing right now because your mouth isn't moving and you're paying attention. But it is such a difficult skill to develop when your head is so filled with your own survival issues, your own fears, your own traumas. How to clear your mind enough to listen to someone and to be able to really hear them. And that is the most powerful gift we can give each other, to take ourselves and our ego out and listen to the other human being profoundly and let them know that we're listening and then share what we have to share. And so we're finding ways to do this. Our Zoom classes are incredibly interactive. Our Zoom mediations are profoundly restorative. And we find that there are creative ways. And sometimes, like with you a couple of weeks ago, so ecstatic just to be on the telephone and relax and be able to walk around and think while I'm talking to you. So I would say, how do we stay connected as humans is we mindfully focus on our skill and our ability to listen and put the other person at the center of our attention.
So beautifully said. I wish that I could turn that into a liquid and everybody in the world could have a cup of it, because boy, that's good medicine. So you talk about, Maralise, listening deeply and seeing those other people. Right now, when I look around and it's starting to get cold outside and I'm taking more walks, trying to take advantage maybe of some of the fleeting sunlight that we have, homelessness, it's there. I see warming shelters. I think about the eviction moratoria that we have until December 31st. We had free 253 on probably about a month ago. And I said, I need to have Maralise Hood Quan on from CDR, as we call you, to talk about your partnership. So it's free mediation for people who are on either side of, I need your rent money, I can't pay my rent money.
And that relationship is the core to making stability and housing in our community. But the dynamics of what happens on both sides of the conversation, I appreciate how you introduced it, is on both sides, we talk about the rent and the payment of the rent, the landlord or the housing provider to be able to pay their mortgage. They've got a relationship with the bank they have to pay. And the person who's renting actually has a lot of things going on. So consider one of the first calls we got, because we are a member of the Free 253, and I'm going to call her Alicia. That is not her name. And so all the Alicias out there, it's not. But I want the listeners of your program to really think about the human being that they know. And what we know statistically, Alicia is the perfect example. She's a single mother who was getting ready in August to figure out what she was going to do about her 3 school-age children. She actually had a job which they were calling her back to do, but was trying to manage, how am I going to oversee remote learning and have this job? And would the job put me in danger of my child's health? And unemployment is not enough to pay the rent. So all of those things are running through her mind. And someone said, call the center, they do mediations. She was so confused of why she called us. And what we're training every person who answers the phone is to listen to the Alicias and understand it's not just about the rent. It's about all the things that are happening in the life, and how can we as a community stay connected and make those connections. First and foremost, and I know Fred's going to figure out a way to put the rental assistance and the application down below, because we don't have enough of the people who are on the verge of losing their housing, and with the end of the moratorium, there is rental assistance out there. But the center's role is to listen profoundly and to help reestablish that relationship between housing provider and renter. Even if the stumbling block was paying fully of the rent, the key there is, what is their relationship going to be in 2021? Where we know the economic situation is not going to end. We know that the disproportionality in terms of people of color, women, are the ones who are disproportionately unstable in their housing. And that's only one of the many balls that they're juggling. So I just wanted to highlight that the center is actually being hired by both Free 253 by our funders, but also right now Pierce County is part of a very unique pilot project, which a landlord or a housing provider cannot evict if there isn't first mediation. And we're just now stepping into that space. And we want our community to know that as the Center for Dialogue, we're committed to each individual on the side of that conversation. We're also really interested in our policymakers, hearing and understanding what are all the other pieces that Alicia needs to resolve to be able to ensure that she's stably housed in January 2021 and going forward. So our listening, our professional listening as mediators, is that key of impartiality, of hearing all sides of the story and recognizing all sides together can come together and come up with a solution. And it's been a struggle to get people to call us and talk to us. So I really invite today, Cityline, you have friends that are struggling, get them to connect with the Center for Dialogue or to go for rental assistance. It's whoever you are talking to that you know is in need. Now is the time to get the help.
And I want to add, Maralise, because that was just so beautifully said, that don't, in addition to the free mediation and really understanding and deeply listening so these people can feel heard when your great people pick up the phone, you also have wonderful resources from utilities. You have a breadth of knowledge that they can walk away with more than just and not if just wasn't enough, but then a conversation. They can walk away with ways to help level out the power bill, bus passes, etc. In this last 4.5 minutes we have left, as I was listening to you and thinking about seeing both sides and being impartial, Maralise, in the years that you have been mediating conflict and making peace, what tips do you have for conflict in home and also in work that you can share with our viewers?
The positive and the negative opportunity is only those who are engaged in the conflict can be the ones to resolve it. No one else can solve for someone else. And that is probably one of the most difficult things, because we love to be able to hire somebody to do our dirty work for us or our difficult work. And so I just want to highlight that conflict resolution is truly a do-it-yourself. Sometimes the table has to be balanced, so everybody shows up with an equal amount of power or a sense of safety to be vulnerable enough to be able to say what they need and how they do it. And that's what the center offers, is that safe space that is impartial and that's going to value both sides. But let's say you're at home and you have 3 kids trying to get onto Zoom, and you also are trying to get onto Zoom at work, and the technology is not your friend and making it difficult. Tempers can flare. We can blow off the handle. We can just lose it. The hope is, in a family, one of you is losing it while the other one still has some reservoirs of calm. And so those deep breaths. And again, I'm going to come right back to the listening. If we develop as a community our skill to say for 3 to 4 minutes, I'm going to listen completely to the other person and I'm going to let them know that I've heard them. You're going to get, first, they're going to calm down. 2, you're going to get a sense of what actually the problem is. And 3, you're going to find some common ground that when it's your turn to speak up and to suggest another way forward rather than screaming at each other and pulling your hair out, you're going to have greater creativity and you're going to have a partner in the other person who has felt heard, felt listened to, and actually heard themselves, the words that were coming out of their mouth, and a greater understanding. All of that comes back to having the skill to be present and to be intentional and to recognize that when you're triggered, you want to calm down. I just want to highlight, we are all living a traumatic experience. Some of us, it's generational trauma that is coming up because of the disproportionality, whether it be, misogyny, racism, all the different isms in the world are making it really difficult. That capacity to be there for the other person. And then we tend to be reciprocity. If you do this for me, I can do it back for you. And we begin to build those connections in that community. The same thing works at work. The same thing if somebody says, it doesn't work and I'm losing it. Give each other the grace to safe space to lose it and then enter into a conversation. Try not to take it personally and really get the relationship between the two people clear. So then it's you two against the problem rather than against that other human being. And that comes from, again, I'm just inviting our community to embrace that. You can go to a listening gym, which is how we train our mediators. They go to the listening gym. It is a muscle that can be strengthened and can increase. And if that is your first and only do-it-yourself skill, you're going to go a long ways being able to put the other person and your ongoing relationship first and foremost with them. I wish there was more time, but I think that gives you a sense of do-it-yourself.
It absolutely does. And we've been showing the Center for Dialogue and Resolution's website below that beautiful face of yours. So people can get on that website and look at some of the events and some of the offerings. Because I certainly have taken the basic mediation course and it changed the way I handle conflict, and I highly recommend it. So Maralise, thank you so much to you and your team. Stay well and stay healthy.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
We have much more to come on Cityline. Don't go away. We'll be right back.